Daddy, I'm coming back home with the baby. I miss you. Just waiting on your call. I love you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. Those emotional words from Chrisean Rock surfaced just before Blueface walked out of jail. Exactly. As promised, with no drama or delays. While fans were still reacting, his mother, Carissa Rock, jumped into full party planning mode for his extravagant homecoming celebration. But not everyone shared her excitement. Blueface's first baby mama, Jaidyn, flatly refused to attend, making it clear she wanted no part in a gathering likely filled with side chicks and industry groupies. Meanwhile, Chrisean, infamous for her unpredictable behavior, rumored to be preparing to crash the event, invited or not, threatening to bring even more chaos. Yet just weeks earlier, Chrisean had posted a tearful video titled Dear Blue, pouring out her heart and begging for forgiveness. Desperate to return, not just to Blueface's life, but to the very home he had once thrown her out of on livestream, tossing her belongings into the street. Despite that public humiliation, she still pleaded to come back, and in a surprising twist, Blueface reportedly sent her a voice memo inviting her to move back in, fueling an already toxic saga marked by betrayal, dysfunction, and endless public spectacle. Oh God. And yes, it truly did. It crushed my heart in a way I can hardly explain. Look, I love all my kids, every single one of them. Whether they develop a little slower, need extra help, wear a helmet, have unruly hair, or even look a little funny, none of that changes my love for them. They are my blood, and my heart beats for them regardless of anything the world says. But I have to be honest, when I saw him at that restaurant for the first time, something deep inside me broke. It was not just a crack in my heart. It was like the air was sucked out of the room. And as if that was not enough, to hear her boldly say she wanted to stomp me out after that hit differently. She probably has no clue what went through my mind when I locked eyes or tried to with that baby. Because the sad truth is, I could not even tell if he was looking at me, at her, or at nothing at all. I felt a hurt I was not prepared for. At first, I dismissed all the whispers and online chatter like it was nothing more than the internet doing what it always does, spinning stories, twisting images, and turning every little moment into a scandal. I figured people were exaggerating, maybe even manipulating photos and videos just for clicks and attention. Even when John, in his usual calm way, mentioned that there might be a few things to look into, I still did not take it seriously. I brushed it off, convincing myself it was probably something small. Something that would pass with time, just another phase that people were blowing way out of proportion. I held on to that belief because, honestly, it was easier to believe the world was wrong than to accept that something could actually be wrong with my grandson. But then came that night. The night I saw him with my own two eyes, sitting right there in front of me. Everything shifted in that moment. It was like the weight of the truth hit me all at once, knocking the wind out of everything I thought I knew. This was not some internet rumor or fan-made story designed to stir up drama. This was real, uncomfortably, heartbreakingly real. Saw the blank stare in his eyes, the total lack of emotion on his face. It felt like he was there physically, but somewhere else, entirely in his mind, locked away in a world none of us could reach. That realization shook me to my core. It was impossible to ignore anymore. I sat there, staring at him. And everything people had been saying suddenly started making sense. His stillness, his unresponsiveness, the unsettling quiet that hung in the air, it was all right there in front of me, and I could no longer pretend it was just gossip. It felt painfully personal, like a gut punch I never saw coming. I realized then how easy it is to hide behind denial until the truth stares you down face to face. All those videos I once dismissed as being edited, all the stories I so easily brushed off as petty gossip or internet drama, they were not noise after all. They were warnings, flashing bright red, and I refused to acknowledge them. Looking back now, I realize I was clinging to the hope that people were just being cruel, that the online world was twisting things like it always does. But that night, sitting face to face with Junior, the truth hit me like a punch to the chest. Everything I had ignored, everything I had labeled as exaggeration, unfolded before my eyes in raw, undeniable reality. And for a moment, I genuinely hated myself for doubting, for being naive, and for waiting this long to see what had been there all along. It was never about what strangers were saying. It was about what I could no longer ignore. There he was, a little boy sitting right in front of me, looking but not really seeing, hearing but not really responding. His eyes seemed locked on something invisible, his expression flat, His little body slouched as if the weight of the world pressed down on his tiny shoulders. It broke me, not because of the rumors, but because of the painful truth staring me in the face. This was not about internet shade or messy family feuds anymore. This was about a child who seemed trapped inside his own world, cut off from everything and everyone around him, and the most painful part, the realization that the very people who should have been fighting the hardest for him had been too busy fighting each other. They were tangled up in pride, quick to defend themselves, too stubborn to admit that something might really be wrong, caught in a toxic cycle of denial, excuses, and online battles. They let the noise drown out the most important voice of all juniors. The irony is cruel. While the world pointed fingers and shouted their opinions, the ones closest to him stayed silent or worse, turned a blind eye. It felt like I had been jolted awake from a deep sleep I did not even know I was in. A brutal, heartbreaking wake-up call that never should have been necessary. And now, I am left wondering how much time had been wasted, how many chances passed by, and how different things might have been if I had just looked a little closer sooner. It is a painful lesson in how pride and ego can blind us to the people who need us most. Because while adults were busy proving points and defending reputations, a little boy sat there lost, overlooked, and silently pleading for the kind of love and care that goes beyond empty words and public image. I walked away that night with a heaviness in my chest I have never felt before. I realized in that moment that sometimes, the internet is not lying. Sometimes, what people are whispering about is painfully true. And knowing that this sweet little boy might be struggling more than anyone wants to admit, that shook me. It made me see things from a perspective I never wanted to see. And honestly, it still haunts me. And when Blueface sent that voice memo to Chrisean, the message was loud and clear. This had nothing to do with love, forgiveness, or fixing a broken relationship. His words were chilling in their honesty. I accepted you back in so you can get on your feet. So my son can get on his feet. It was not a heartfelt invitation or a plea for reconciliation. Instead, it sounded more like a backhanded reminder that her place in his life was purely conditional and entirely about their son. But that phrase, "so my son can get on his feet," carried a weight most people did not miss. Because anyone who has followed this situation even a little bit knows exactly what he was really saying. For almost 2 years, quiet murmurs and online speculation have swirled around Junior's slow development. Whispers that only seemed to grow louder as each milestone passed him by. In the world of parenting, there are certain joyful markers everyone looks forward to. A baby's first steps, their first babbling words, the gleam in their eyes when they begin recognizing faces, or the way they light up at familiar voices. These are the moments most parents capture and share with pride, especially in today's social media age. But when it came to Junior, those heartwarming milestones remained painfully absent. As other toddlers his age were starting to walk, talk, and playfully interact with their surroundings, Junior seemed frozen in time. The videos shared online, glimpses fans caught during public outings only deepened the concern. Instead of a lively, curious toddler, people noticed a child whose body seemed unnaturally limp, whose head appeared heavy and unsupported, and whose gaze often drifted blankly into space. His reactions to the world around him were slow, sometimes entirely absent, as though the simple joys of childhood were passing him by without him even noticing. For every video that surfaced, instead of silencing the critics, it sparked fresh waves of worry and heartache among viewers. The more people saw, the clearer it became that this was not a case of a child developing at his own pace. It almost felt like Junior was trapped in a state of suspended infancy, living in slow motion while the world raced on around him. As months turned into years, what might have once been brushed off as a harmless delay began to look like a deep, underlying issue that no one close to him seemed willing to address publicly. The concern was not just coming from random internet trolls either. Parents, teachers, even healthcare professionals started quietly voicing their thoughts, pointing out the red flags that could not be ignored. The heartbreaking part was the denial from those who should have been paying the closest attention. Instead of seeking answers or acknowledging the visible signs, it felt like the adults in Junior's life were more focused on silencing criticism, defending reputations, or keeping up appearances. And with every new clip shared online, a little more of that facade began to crack. The truth, as painful as it is, seemed unavoidable. Junior was not hitting the milestones expected for his age, and pretending otherwise would not make it better. What hurt the most was the realization that, behind all the social media noise, there was a child who needed help, a child who deserved more than excuses, denial, or damage control. The longer this went on, the more obvious it became that this was not just a phase or harmless delay. It was a call for action, a cry for attention that had been drowned out by pride, chaos, and a stubborn refusal to face reality. The internet, in its usual brutal fashion, even slapped a nickname on it: Duchette syndrome. A cruel and mocking term coined by trolls who analyzed every clip, every photo, and every live stream. They picked apart his facial expressions, his posture, the way he held his head, and used it as fodder for jokes and gossip. Some compared his delayed motor skills to that of a newborn, even though he was well past his first birthday. But beyond the online mockery, there was a deeper, sadder truth to it all. Because behind every meme and nasty comment was the undeniable fact that something really did seem off with Junior's development, whether it was due to medical reasons, neglect, or circumstances beyond anyone's control. This was not just online drama. It was a child's life, a child who deserved care, attention, and honest concern. So, when Blueface dropped that voice memo, it felt less like a co-parent trying to build a better future and more like a man washing his hands of responsibility, pointing the finger at Chrisean for everything that had gone wrong. Instead of unity for the sake of their son, it sounded like an accusation wrapped in a shallow offer of help. And that made the situation feel even darker, because at the heart of this messy saga is a little boy caught in a tug-of-war between two parents more focused on controlling the narrative than actually addressing what truly matters: his health, his future, and his right to grow up with the love and support every child deserves. But things turned nastier when Chrisean clapped back, accusing Blueface of using their son as a weapon in their fight. She insisted she has been there for Junior, taking a whole year off to give him all the love and attention he needed. But public opinion has been brutal, especially with clips of Junior's strange, high-pitched cries fueling talk of deeper issues. Chrissy stood her ground, defending her child with everything she had, but, despite her fierce loyalty, many could not ignore the elephant in the room: her reckless behavior during pregnancy. It was impossible to forget the viral clips of her getting into fights, showing up at parties, and openly using substances while carrying Junior. To her critics, this was not just bad judgment, it was a recipe for disaster. They blamed her for every developmental delay, every missed milestone, every heartbreaking video that surfaced of Junior appearing distant, unresponsive, or unusually quiet. And this blame did not just come from anonymous social media users or ruthless internet trolls. Even Blueface's own mother, Chrisean, weighed in, and she did not hold back. In a raw, emotional livestream, Chrisean poured her heart out to her followers, her voice breaking as she shared her personal experience seeing Junior for the first time. "I didn't know if he was looking at me, the air, or his mama," she confessed, her words cutting deep. Chrisean admitted that for the longest time, she dismissed the internet chatter. Like many family members, she assumed the online world was twisting the story, editing videos, and fabricating drama for views and clicks. Even when Blueface hinted that there might be a few issues, she believed it was nothing serious, just exaggerated stories blown out of proportion by fans looking for something to gossip about. But everything changed the day she laid eyes on her grandson in person. "I really thought folks were exaggerating until I saw him myself," she admitted. The reality hit her harder than she could have ever expected. It was not the dramatics of social media, nor the biased opinions of outsiders. It was a first-hand experience that shook her to her core. Junior's blank stare, his stillness, his lack of reaction, all of it painted a picture she could no longer deny. For Chrisean, that moment was not just heartbreaking, it was a rude awakening. She realized that maybe the critics had a point and that her grandson might truly be facing struggles far greater than anyone had been willing to admit. And while Chrisean continued to fight off accusations, insisting that Junior was fine and that people were being cruel, the growing number of concerned voices only amplified the spotlight on her past behavior. The entire situation spiraled into a complicated web of blame, heartbreak, and bitter It became more than just a family issue, it became a public spectacle. And at the center of it all was a child who did not ask for any of this. A child who needed love, care, and understanding, not to be caught in a storm of judgment and denial. The harsh truth: while Chrisean's defenses may have come from a place of love, her past choices cast a long shadow, one that even her strongest words could not fully erase. Then Blueface dropped the hammer, publicly accusing Chrisean of partying and smoking all throughout her pregnancy, even on the way to the hospital. According to him, she could not stay clean for even a month for the sake of their child. And just like that, this messy, painful story hit an all-time low. It was brutal, heartless, and it set the internet ablaze. Naturally, Chrisean fired back, hopping on live, her eyes glassy with emotion, asking, "Why would you use our son to hurt me?" She insisted she had sacrificed everything for junior doctor visits, therapy, even stepping away from her career for a year just to focus on him. "You do not even know what is going on," she said, clearly shaken. "I am with our son every single day. He is loved, he is cared for, he is fine." But behind that emotional front, insiders claim Chrisean was seething, feeling manipulated, not embraced. She believed Blueface never welcomed her back out of love or reconciliation, but as part of a twisted scheme to control her and paint himself as the savior for Junior. So, she packed her bags, this time by choice, and filmed every step of her exit, showing the nursery, her belongings, and proving that Blueface's claims about her stuff being in storage were lies. Her things had been stuffed in his Corvette all along. "He gave me an ultimatum," she said. "Come back on his terms, under his control. I said no." Those words from Chrisean marked a turning point in their toxic cycle. She refused to be manipulated into returning to a situation where she felt like a pawn in Blueface's endless power games. Meanwhile, plans for Blueface's grand homecoming were in full swing, with his mother, Chrisean, taking charge like she was planning a royal event, and by her side was Jaidyn, Alexis, the woman often labeled the main in Blueface's messy web of relationships. But Jaidyn was far from enthusiastic about playing co-host. In fact, she wanted nothing to do with it. Why? Because Blue's idea of a guest list looked more like the lineup for a reality TV reunion show, a chaotic mix of ex-girlfriends, current flings, side chicks, old enemies, and everyone in between. It was a powder keg waiting to explode, and Jaidyn wanted no part in lighting the fuse. Jaidyn even pitched alternative ideas, suggesting a quiet family dinner or a peaceful bonfire at the beach. Something calm where drama could not thrive. But that suggestion was dead on arrival. After all, this was Blueface's world, a world where conflict was currency, and chaos was the guest of honor. Peace was never going to be part of the agenda. And then there was Chrisean. True to form, rumors swirled that she was gearing up for a dramatic entrance, whether her name was on the guest list or not. Because if there is one thing Chrisean has made clear over the years, it is that she does not play by anyone's rules, not Blueface, not Chrisean's, not society's. The idea of her barging into the party, uninvited and unbothered, felt less like a rumor and more like an inevitability. As word of the brewing tension leaked online, fans wasted no time choosing sides. Some cheered for Jaidyn, praising her for wanting to avoid the circus. Others anticipated the chaos with popcorn in hand, expecting the night to unravel into another viral disaster. One comment summed up the sentiment perfectly: "Jaidyn, out here choosing peace, while Chrisean's packing her boots to stir the pot." And honestly, it all seemed to follow a predictable pattern, a never-ending loop of messy relationships, public blow-ups, and family dysfunction, all playing out on the internet stage. This was not just about a homecoming party, it was about a toxic family dynamic that refused to change, no matter how many red flags waved in the air. So the stage was set, a guest list filled with rivals, a mother orchestrating the event, a baby mama determined to stay out of the chaos, and another seemingly hell-bent on crashing it. And looming over it all was the inevitable question: would this night end in celebration, or would it spiral into yet another chapter of the never-ending Blueface saga? Social media split instantly, some praising Jaidyn for choosing peace, others bracing for the inevitable chaos. Comments ranged from "Jaidyn's doing what we all hoped Chrisean would growing up," to "Rock lives for the mess." Now, all eyes are on the ticking time bomb. What happens when Blueface, Chrisean, Jaidyn, and Chrisean collide under one roof? Will it be fists, drinks, or maybe, just maybe, someone choosing maturity over madness? In this family, history says it will not end until something explodes.